Tinja Anderson here, and with me I have Brian Smith. We make up the special care planning team for Mass Mutual Greater Houston, and today I'm super excited to introduce you to an author of an amazing book, specifically an autism-inspired I Love You book, Kayla Monville. And so with Valentine's Day coming up, I thought it was just perfect timing. So Kayla, welcome. Please tell us all about you and this amazing book.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored. So like you said, I'm Kayla Monville and I'm a mother. I have 2 children with autism, ages 6 and 4. I'm a wife, I'm an educator, and now an author to, I'll show you the Rock With Me Autism Inspired I Love You book. It's
Love it. It's awesome. Yeah.
So this kind of came about during the pandemic. I really thought I was going to write a book more geared towards parenting or special education. I was a special educator for almost 10 years, both, in special education and got to work in the gen ed settings as well. So I thought, my best advice or my expertise would be more in that area. But my husband and I one day was just reminiscing about our children's diagnosis. My son was first, and we had just had my daughter when my son was going through his diagnosis, and just reflecting on that experience, and we're looking ahead for our kid's future, and they're enrolling in school, and he just was in the middle of pandemic in kindergarten, so his first experience in education. So I was we were talking about what that looked like for us, and I had the expertise of special education. So I came from a totally different perspective than my husband, who, when we were sitting during the diagnosis, we were talking about our children's delays and their struggles and the different things that make them different. And my husband had a really hard time with it, where I almost was talking to the experts as if I was doing a case study on a student, not my own child. I just kind of went to professional mode, or everything I would say, my child's not talking yet. Well, he says some words like da da. And I'm like, that's not a word. So, he was just very defensive, and he had every right to be, because we sat for 4 hours and talked about our child's delays, and it was hurtful, and it was in front of our child. And when we left, we were all in tears because it just did not feel right. We were handed a resource, and it basically just said, here's some things that your child needs. Here's what's in your area. Nothing in our area. We live in a rural area. So we didn't have the opportunity for, sensory integration and ABA and all of these things that parents then go seek to find. And we didn't have that. And I thought, what is something that we could then contribute that would make that diagnosis process easier and didn't leave feeling like we felt when we left both of our children's diagnosis. And so that's when I started writing the children's book. I wanted something a little bit more educational, that was telling autism awareness, telling children about what autism is. We have people that ask about our daughter all the time. She flaps, and they'll ask, why does she do that? So I wanted to maybe explain that, but then also celebrate them. It's because all of those things that we were saying about our kid, maybe that were delayed, like my daughter flapping, those are things we love about our child. So I just felt like when we were leaving, even though there wasn't any resources available, if I had this resource saying, I know this was hard. I know we just talked about a lot in front of your child and the delays that they experience, but here's to remind you that we still love and appreciate all of those things about them. And that's not what we're wanting to change. So it was needed. So that's when I started writing Autism Inspired I Love You book, Rock With Me.
That's awesome. So I'm a sibling, so I can, feel the emotional side of things when you talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Some things that I found in the community that really helped me be a better person, a better brother, and a supporter for all the other families. There's 2 things. Is one time I read a blog about a dad, and he was like, it's really sad when 95% of the time when you're communicating with your friends, your lifelong friends, your family members, your colleagues, and your child first gets diagnosed, the first thing that come out of their mouth is, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying congratulations, like you've got a beautiful child, you've got a beautiful baby. Mm-hmm. And that kind of resonated with me, is because I looked back on my life and I was like, look, I'm not going to be the person I am today without James. Without a doubt, mm-hmm. Like I wouldn't be in this line of work. I wouldn't be having these conversations if it wasn't for James.
Right.
When you talk about celebrating, I mean, having a disability is not really disability, it's just diversity. We're all different in our own ways. We all struggle either with math or writing or some executive functioning skills, or maybe we're just socially a little different than other people in your public environment. And I think that's really awesome that you put that whole celebrating and not necessarily looking at things that are viewed as bad things, as saying like, look, they can do other things. They can give unconditional love. They're always smiling. They always cheer you up. And that's awesome. And so my question to you would be, what would be one of your biggest pieces of advice for newer families that are going through this on the emotional side? What would you say to them to keep them level-headed, not feeling overwhelmed, and empowering them as a mom or a dad? What would that piece of advice be?
I would say, there's a lot I could say about, what I was feeling and being in their shoes. And it's okay to feel all of those things. There's times that you're mad. There's times that you're sad. There's times that you're worried. And there's times that you're just so happy. But like you said before, I would not be the mother I am, and I would not be the educator I am if I didn't have my children giving me those experiences. We get to see the light in such a different way. Things that my friends experience with their, typical kids, they don't get, the experience like what I get. There are some things that are really hard and really, really challenging for me, but there's other things that they don't get to experience like we do. My son is the funniest kid you will ever meet. And the things that he takes so literal are just hilarious. Like my sister told him the other day to go put his shoes back in the mud room. I don't know if everybody calls it a mud room, but where you kick your shoes off. And he was like, where's all the mud? Like he was, curious about like cleaning it up. Like, where's the mud? So just those little joys and laughs, and all kids do things like that. But there's more that's similar with my children and their peers than there is different. Right. So we have to remember that we're all still human. They're all still, children that become adults, and that we get to experience things just so much more. Like those little things that happen, we really rejoice. Like the first time my child, went to potty on the potty, like that was huge for us, and just even reminiscing from all the things we weren't sure we were going to get through, and how we are just celebrating them. Like everything's a celebration. They tie their shoes. Oh my gosh, a celebration. All parents get to do that, right? It's just so much more special for us. Like it's just a deeper feeling, deeper meaning, deeper rejoice, I guess, and to feel it, like to be okay celebrating all of those little accomplishments, because they add up to big things, and your kid will do big things. You need to be their cheerleader and cheering them on, and they will do amazing things for you.
That's true. I mean, it puts things in perspective. So when we were writing this book, what was some of your favorite parts or your favorite moments in the process of writing the book or inside of the book? What is that?
I would say my kids' involvement in it. Okay. So just watching them and then like going back to write, I use the word in there fancy, and that's kind of something we say to my daughter all the time. So back when I was a kid, my mom always watched Days of Our Lives, as who I was named after, Kayla Brady. So, but he used to call her fancy face. So we will joke and say that to my daughter, this fancy face. So when I say there's so much I fancy about you, it's those special meanings to my kids. And also when I got the book, my son, our whole family, we love books, and my children are obsessed with books. So when I got the books and, we had all of these packages, coming into the garage, my son was like, 100 million books. Like he was so excited about it. He was a little disappointed that it was the same book 100 million times. So he thought he was getting like a whole new collection of books, and he's like, what's going on? But he loves helping me wrap them. So each book I wrap personally, and then we bought stamps of the characters, and he helps me stamp them. My daughter too, it helps her with her fine motor skills. So it's like, all right, come on over and help us, stamp. So I love the involvement of my whole family. My husband is my biggest cheerleader. He's the one, honestly, that's pushed me to write it. He's like, this is needed, where I probably would have quit 100 different times. But he just kept reminding me of my why and telling me, this is for other families to celebrate, like we get to celebrate. So just that involvement of all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I love the why story. I mean, that's what keeps us going, keeps that flame lit, keeps us passionate. So, kudos to having an amazing husband always help you and force you through that. You said you would, there was a lot of struggles, or there was a lot of times where you're like, I just want to stop this. What was the toughest part about this process of writing a book, getting it printed, selling it, working with a publisher? What was the toughest thing that you would want to advise people if they wanted to do this? Like, hey, just be ready for this part.
It's the learning curve. I never wrote a book before. I didn't know the first thing about it. So I just had to, it was like learning a new language. I had to take webinars. I had to involve myself in different groups and ask a lot of questions, pull resources that I might have and ask them, how do I do this or that? And my illustrator was amazing. So this was her first book illustrating too. And, I would like write her and like, oh my gosh, I just read on this author page, we have to have a bleed. What's a bleed? She's like, I'm on it. Like, she's like, okay, I'll find out. I don't know what it is, but we will find out. So it's just the learning curve of when you get stuck on one thing, it's okay. Because there's times I was like, nope, I'm done. Too much money, too much, costs involved in this, too much time. I spent hours up at night, thinking about it. I'd wake my husband up in the middle of the night, like, okay, what if I said this? Or what if we did this? Let's start our own, LLC so that we're protected and, all those things. And he's like, what are you doing? It's midnight. But just, pushing through. And there were so many times, like I said, that I was like, nope. I don't know what that means. I just feel like giving up. Like, I think this is just not going to happen. And he was the one that was like, you've been here before. It's just like, in education, when you're learning, something's tough, break down the walls. What is your question and how can you find it? So when he would remind me of those things, like, what's the question? The answer's out there. Other people wrote a book, so it's not impossible. Right. You just have to push through and do it. So just keep going.
How would families get a copy of this? Where can they go to buy this book?
So I'm currently selling it on my website. It's raysofsteel.com. So I do everything myself. So we print it in bulk and I send them out. It's not on Amazon. It is a board book, which are not printed in the US. So we had to work with a US company that does print in China. So I am selling them online at my store. And then I'm in 3 stores, 2 locally to me in Michigan, and then 1 in Alabama. So I'm hoping to get out a little bit more, but you can get it right from my website.
Awesome. Is there another project in the works at all, or right now are we just living on the high times of this book?
I'm looking at my next print run for this book. So I'm running low on copies. I've sold almost 1,000 copies in like 3 months. So yeah. Thanks. It's been great. So, and it does take a while to get books in because I'm printing overseas. So my next project is working with different organizations and ABA centers to back the book so that they can give to their families. So they'll have their name and their logo in the back of the book, and then they will have copies to give to their families to use either as marketing or just appreciation and celebration for their clients or patients or their friends, whatever they call them at their centers or their organization. So right now we're looking at starting another bigger print run and having those names in the back of the book.
Awesome. Tinja, is there anything you wanna add real quick?
I love it. Well, so I love the graphics in it. What was the process with that? Did you guys do the illustration? Did you work with an illustrator?
Yeah, so I actually worked with an illustrator. Like I said, she was a first-time illustrator. She owns an art business in New York, her and her husband. And I met her in college. So we were friends in college. We actually worked together like as a seasonal job at Aeropostale when Aeropostale was cool. So we, I don't know what the kids are wearing these days, but it seems like all different. But so we worked together and then we had a class together and I knew she owned an art business. I love social media for that aspect. You get to keep in touch with people you haven't talked to in a while. And I reached out to her and it just worked. She's like, I've been meaning to put, this on my bucket list. I've been meaning to look into this and I would love to join you with this project. And she was just amazing to work with and so talented.
Came out so great. Like, absolutely.
Thank you.
One last question. Do you have any like readings going on? Like, how do we like get access to a preview, or do you do any like marketing outside of just the directing people to your website?
Yeah, so I have it on my website, but I also have a Facebook page and Instagram page. So my Instagram page is like Rays of Steel with Autism, and then Autism Inspired Resources is my Facebook page. And there is different people that have done YouTube videos, so you can find a couple YouTube videos if you put in the book's name. And they've done some readings, which are really fun to watch. And I have one on my Facebook page as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and telling us all about your Autism Inspired I Love You book. I can't wait to share this with our audience as well. And I will make sure to put all of your links for how to get access to it. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Awesome. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.